going to start today's webcast. I'm Joe Gig Werks, the managing partner of Gig Werks and the president of Project Ready. And today we're going to be looking at what's new in document management for SharePoint 2016 and online. So a little bit about us as we begin. We've been working with SharePoint as our primary focus as a firm for a decade now. And during that period of time, going back to our very beginning, we've been a Microsoft Gold partner and have always maintained in-house the best skill set in the market today. With that, we've been recognized by Microsoft over the years. We're virtual technology specialists for the Microsoft New York Enterprise Group, going into their enterprise firms and being able to talk on a more detailed level about complex and enterprise quality solutions. We're 5 times award-winning across Microsoft and have been invited into the Partner Evidence Program since SharePoint 2007. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, what this really comes down to is we have enjoyed access to the earliest iterations of SharePoint as they're in beta and beyond. Additionally, as part of this relationship, we were trained early on in the modern app model, which is driving cloud deployment today. So with that, our expertise is across the full Microsoft stack, going back to our earlier days prior to our involvement with Microsoft SharePoint. We've always been a Microsoft-centric shop and have expertise across that full platform, which is requisite to support and create high-level, high-quality solutions. In terms of industry focus, we've serviced a wide variety of companies of type, but we do have particular expertise around legal, architecture, and engineering and construction, facilities management, financial services, and healthcare. Project Ready, which was born of Gig Werks and is our subsidiary company, is a software as a service product that is designed to extend and enhance and manage and give control and visibility across SharePoint and Office 365, being essentially a program project management and document control suite, among others. And in terms of package solutions and offerings, we do offer advisory services. We have specialized workshops around SharePoint and Office 365 of high value as institutions transition from one iteration of SharePoint to another. Understanding what has changed in the context of what you do is a big value add. We're also premier Nintex partners, one of the top in North America, and with that we have quick starts around Nintex, the #1 ISV, our independent software vendor in the community today. So very quickly about Project Ready as well, and highly apropos and underscores our passion and understanding of document management and ECM as it relates to the Microsoft platform. Project Ready has the collaboration engine, and these are separate topics, and please come to our website, and there's also project-ready.com. But what this underscores is between the collaboration engine and the document control suite or viewer is that we've long had a focus on not just SharePoint in its incredible breadth and depth, but also we have had a particular passion around its capabilities as it relates to document management, and the Project Ready suite is fully representative of that, and we take SharePoint much further and beyond. And so with that, and to circle in on today, what were traditionally the 6 pillars of SharePoint, these things morph over time, and we'll distribute this PowerPoint to those of you who fill out our survey at the end, and please do. But with that, there's a myriad of differences across the two, but this gap is changing rapidly, and in fact, what you'll find is that going forward from 2016 on, what you're going to have is features first in the cloud and then on-prem. Microsoft is clearly dedicated and devoted to continuing its extended cloud play. And we ourselves are huge, ardent supporters of Office 365, particularly in light of the modern app model, which allows you to create and extend SharePoint Online and what otherwise would have been rather cumbersome customizations on an on-prem basis. So with that, I'm going to turn our presentation over to Neil Barkina, CTO of Gig Werks and Project Ready. Neil?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Neil. I'm going to just pick up where Joe left off, so give me a moment and I will share my screen. Okay, so today we're going to be focusing on some of the new things that people have probably been seeing in SharePoint and elsewhere in Office 365, particularly around the document management features. I'm going to just start with a sort of like a brief PowerPoint, and then I'll go in and actually show you some of these things. But in terms of some of the really nice features that I thought would be worth mentioning, one of those is co-authoring. So co-authoring has been around for a while, but in terms of really picking up the sort of the user interface around it, co-authoring used to only be in the thick client. They started then rolling it out to all of the web apps, the thick clients, and even giving you the ability to sort of mix and match that in the two. Nowadays, when you go in and you do co-authoring, it's totally transparent with who's online and who's on-prem, and even the ability to do what's known as real-time co-authoring, where if you're in a Word, you actually see where the person's cursor is, and it's just a much more sort of fluid experience. Works across most of the Office suite. It works in Word and PowerPoint. Excel currently is still only on the web version. Hopefully at some point it will be in the thick client as well. Next up is versioning. So obviously another great sort of feature of the document management story in terms of just being able to update a document and then go back and actually see previous versions is just a very powerful thing. It's something you don't have on a traditional file system. Normally you would just update a document on your desktop and that's it, and then you basically you have no way of actually going back and seeing previous versions. But versioning also sort of comes with a couple of extra sort of nice features. It's kind of also gives you a way of auditing what happened. So not only does it track the versions, it tracks the people that have worked on it. Any additional metadata or updates that people have made to those is also something that gets tracked as part of versioning. There's also external sharing, which really is something unique to Office 365, not as much on SharePoint on-premises. It's really something that they've done very well in terms of just being able to just call somebody out by their email address, and then collaborating with that external user either at the site level or on the document level. You can do it pretty much on any of the document libraries, the documents, and it really is a very powerful feature. Another new thing that they have is this thing around called document conversation. So those of you who have seen some of the Yammer integration are probably familiar with sort of the rich conversational features that you have, the ability to have a real-time chat, reply and update, kind of a rich enterprise social network. They're kind of also taking that functionality and putting it right into the context of a document. So as you're in a document, you can actually converse with somebody, and it's and it really becomes something of a mainstay in the document, not a sort of like a link where it's you just message the person and then it's gone. This is really kind of like a conversation that stays with the document, that you can come back and actually see what people have been thinking about. So another great feature there. One of my favorite new things, which we'll probably be covering in a subsequent webinar, is the story around mobile. So mobile obviously has been sort of the hit technology in the last decade or so. No, I don't think anybody would argue with that. But in terms of SharePoint and Office 365, really SharePoint in particular, the mobile sort of messaging and story has always been a little bit, confusing and not very feature-rich. They've always had a mobile site. You can always go to like a tablet, but the experience that you had on mobile versus sort of the full-on browser experience were much different from one another. So sort of to hone in on that story, Microsoft went and actually wrote a first-class app. It's out for iOS. I don't know if it's out for Android or not. It probably is. If it's not, I'm sure it's going to be this year, and Windows Phone. But really, this is going to be the future of mobile for SharePoint and Office 365 in general. I think Microsoft's basically embraced the apps, the first-class apps, as sort of the dominant technology, and a lot of the features that you're going to be seeing that are going to be coming out for both SharePoint and Office 365 are going to support this mobile platform. The same sort of experience when you go to a new team site or a document library. You're going to have that on your phone. You're going to be able to search for things. You're going to be able to see a news feed of what people have been working on. So I think this is really a great feature. So in particular, what we're going to be focusing on today is going to be these next-gen document libraries. So some of you have probably been seeing these coming out here and there. The reason I say that is because the way Office 365 tends to roll out updates, they kind of just force it on you when you least expect it. Sort of the double-edged sword of cloud technology. There are though options for either being a first release customer or waiting until sort of the main wave, and that's something I'll show you as part of the demo. But sort of the key points here is that you're going to see that these document libraries and just the user interface in general is just much more clean. It's going to be much more sort of in the same user interface that you see in the consumer version of OneDrive. So those of you who have used OneDrive for Business, OneDrive Consumer, they're really going to be merging the two, making it sort of a consistent look and feel, so that no matter which one you're using, you're going to have this nice rich experience. Some of the quick things just to call out, obviously a very powerful search, but also sort of an eye towards some of the traditional features of SharePoint, so as not to leave those behind, things like metadata and groupings and views. So really what you're going to see is kind of like a meshing of what was the old style document libraries with this sort of new user interface paradigm, which I actually I really do enjoy. Another new feature that you're going to see is a reimagining of what was traditionally known as the team site. So SharePoint sites, web parts, all of these concepts are going to have a new coat of paint where you'll be able to have essentially the same sort of user interface like you do on the phone, which you could see. I think it illustrates pretty well here in this slide. You're on the phone version, you still see the news, you still see the activity. It's that same experience. There's going to be a new sort of API coming around for developing web parts. And I think they've really just simplified it. They tried to make it much more cleaner, again much more sort of the same user interface like you have in the OneDrive services. And this feature in particular, not everybody has had this yet. This is one of probably the later ones that they're going to roll out. So don't be surprised if you don't see this yet. But this is really where everything's going to be going, is towards these new modern team sites. One of the things we will see today is OneDrive for Business, some of the new features there. Obviously, this is going to be a really big sort of story in the Office 365 list of services. OneDrive for Business is where you store your documents, your personal documents in the corporate world. Same as you do OneDrive Consumer in the home world. It's just going to have very powerful sync, so same as you see in the Dropbox, where you can go and you can download offline, the copies of the documents, make updates, and upload them up. They give you up to 1 terabyte of storage with OneDrive for Business, so if you're thinking about doing things like hybrid, you might have attended our webinar previously. I think just even going with OneDrive for Business in the cloud is really a no-brainer. Being able to get 1 terabyte of storage for every one of your on-premises users is just a massive infrastructure and cost sort of thing. They basically have this done very well. It's just a great features. Again, you got that great user interface, the synchronization, and so on. So let's go on to now actually take a look at some of these things. First thing I'm going to start with is this thing which they call SharePoint Home. So over on the Office 365 app launcher, you're going to see that obviously you have all your different services here. What they used to call sites, or the concept of sites, they've now renamed back to SharePoint, which is kind of interesting because it seemed like for a while they were downplaying the whole SharePoint concept, that they just wanted to use sort of like a name that everybody is familiar with, like sites. But I think they kind of went back and said, you know what, SharePoint is really a mainstay. You know, who doesn't know what SharePoint is? And it kind of really should be a first-class citizen. So in terms of the SharePoint home, is what they call this, this is really kind of a great sort of landing page to see all of your recent sites. So, you know, if you guys have used Microsoft Office, you're probably familiar with the ability to have, you know, documents roam with you no matter where you are. You know, the whole concept of being signed into an Office profile. So you could sign into one machine and then sign into a different machine. You see the same list of recent documents showing up there. Same thing with SharePoint. So any site where you have activity, those are going to roam with you, and those also come through again on the mobile app. So you'll see those on the mobile app. Over here, you know, the sort of the default view, it shows you your frequent sites, but you also have the ability to pin sites as well. So this concept of pinning, you're going to see this as a recurring theme in terms of when we actually go and look at document libraries. So even though it's showing you here's things that you've worked on before, you can pin the sort of like the main 5 sites that you always go to. And not only that, another really cool thing you'll notice here in the middle, it actually shows you activity that's happening on the sites themselves. So this is what Microsoft's calling the Office Graph. Basically, you know, a concept where all of your activities and opening of documents and, you know, browsing sites, they're actually collecting all of that data and making the system smarter and, you know, more sort of collaborative and user-friendly and customized and tailored for each and every user. So all that data doesn't go to waste. And then even at the admin level, they do have this concept of featured links. So as an administrator, if you want to basically force a list of 5 sites that you want everybody to see, those can come from the sort of IT pro end of it as well. The next thing to look at is OneDrive for Business. So again, you've got the really nice clean layout. They've gone ahead, they've moved the search here up at the top left, so you can just start typing something and you get that real-time search results coming back from the document library. And also a sort of highlight of groups. Groups has really been a big hit for Microsoft and Office 365. It's a great feature. It's essentially a way of encompassing a SharePoint site, an Exchange folder, and a distribution group all in one. And it spans many of the different Office 365 services. If you share a document or a document shared with you from either a person or a group, those will appear here as well. And they've also added this thing called Discover, which is a little bit like Delve in the sense that, you know, instead of you going out and finding documents, they're actually out there finding you. So, you know, Discover tells you things about here's the documents, you know, your peers are working on. Here's, you know, sort of like, you know, sites and lists where there's been a lot of activity. So, you know, from a collaborative standpoint, it's really about just saving you time. You don't have to go out and find something if it's going to be there when you come to the system. Moving right along, this is the new sort of team site landing page. So some of you have probably seen this as well for some of the first release customers. Up at the top, they're going to display things like here's activity. Again, it's that focus on social trending content where, you know, people are working on documents and things like that. And one interesting thing is it seems like the global navigation is not as sort of prominent in this interface, but the quick launch is. So the same quick launch, which again you'll see on the mobile app, comes through on that experience as well. The way they organize this is essentially by contents and by subsites, so you can flip back and forth and quickly see, you know, where the content is, what subsites live in the site. And again, it's a very similar user interface to that you had in the OneDrive for Business in terms of look and feel. So the next thing I want to just jump into is some of the new features around document libraries. So we'll go into the new sort of document library experience. If you guys hit this page and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, take me back, there is a link here at the bottom left where you can return to the classic mode. But just a couple of things to sort of point out here. In terms of updating metadata, or even updating anything in general, you see that the ribbon is now nowhere to be seen. So they're really kind of now downplaying the ribbon and going back to the sort of contextual sort of bar up at the top like you have in Windows. And essentially now if you want to go and you want to update metadata, you would highlight a document and you'd click this little info on the right-hand side. So this is kind of taking place in terms of replacing some of the features you've seen with the SharePoint callout. Those of you who have seen those like 3 little ellipses, this is kind of like the new version of that. You still see that preview of the document. But now inline, you can go and you can say, I want to update metadata. If you want to update all of it, it goes to this sort of full-on view. If you just want to update some of it, you can update it right in that little contextual pane. Another cool thing also is if you wanted to actually create new metadata, they added this little plus bar over at the top right. And really quickly I can just say I need a new sort of single line of text. Give this a name. And without even leaving the page, I've gone ahead and changed the metadata on here. So that's a really nice feature. Also, in terms of selecting things, you're going to see that you have a lot more things like that you have in Windows Explorer. You can kind of drag your mouse and select a whole bunch of content, then move it into a folder or do a sort of like a bulk action on it. You do still have the ability to do things like quick edit and so on. And then another thing also is in terms of the metadata. If you wanted to categorize, you could do that right from this view. So before you had to go and change the view and create your own view. If you just want to go and group by client, you can do that right from within the header. And you can also do what they're calling pinning. So there's 2 different views. There's this sort of traditional list view and also a tiled view, where you get these really nice, rich previews for the documents. And if there's a document that you want everybody to be aware of, that's where you can go in and you say, I want to pin this to the top. And now this becomes sort of like a first-class sort of content that everybody can see. And it's even available in both the list view and the tiled view. And if you did want to also make some updates to this view, you could even show and hide columns right from within here. So definitely check out some of the different things they have in here. If you wanted to say, I want to just show hide columns. Again, it's much more contextual. In SharePoint, when you went and did this, traditionally you'd be whisked off to sort of like a whole other experience, a whole list settings. Now it's just become sort of much more integrated into your default sort of view. A couple other things just to show. So in terms of admin, if you wanted to have this sort of first release experience, if you're brave enough and you want to see these features, I definitely recommend, if you do have the access to do so, go into the admin center. There's a link here on the left. You click on an organizational profile and you say you can here change the release track. So first release for everyone basically means as soon as Microsoft has pushed out the code, I want it. If you want to wait for sort of more wave or later on, you can change this to the standard wave. Also in terms of if you wanted to be able to actually have that document library experience as a whole, you can go to the SharePoint Admin Center and you can change the new experience back to classic experience, and that basically will allow you to still use the old user interface until you're ready to actually make the transition to the new document library experience. And you can even set it at the document library itself. So they really give you a lot of different options in terms of where you want to see this feature.
As always, we thank you for spending time with us today, or typically on your lunch hour. Hope it was informative. Please do fill out the survey so we can send you today's recording and deck. And stay tuned as we have continuing series of webcasts. Is a busy time of year and a busy spin within technology. So lots of great new features to look at as it relates to Office 365 and our own product offerings for Office 365 around Project Ready. So again, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Rick.